Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. We want to welcome you to this discussion that we're having as part of our Boom and Balance project, which has been a series that we've been working on for a while now. That is exploring both the positive things and also the challenges that come with really massive and rapid growth, which we're seeing obviously in Charleston and across many communities in our state. We've done some really exceptionally good reporting that I think has helped everyone understand what the dynamics are, how that's playing out, how our communities are affected. So we're really pleased to be able to have all of you here and to be hosting this event today. My name is Jeff Taylor. I'm the executive editor of the Post and Courier. I'm new to town. I've been here just about a month. I'm very excited to be in Charleston and to be a part of what the Post and Courier group is doing, not only here but across South Carolina, to build out news coverage in a lot of communities where news has been cut quite a lot, and we all know that that's a recipe for a bad outcome, because we need local journalism to make sure that people are informed, that elected officials and people in power are held to account, and to make sure that we tell the stories of our communities. So I'm very, very, very excited about being here to be a part of that. It's what drew me here. This is the sixth of the Boom and Balance events that we've done, so you're part of number 6, and we have a lot of we have a lot of things that these folks are going to be talking about today. That I hope that if you read the Post and Courier, if you are a subscriber, we thank you. If you are not, I would really encourage you to subscribe, because we can only do this kind of journalism through the support of our subscribers. So you can find that at postandcourier.com under subscriptions, or you can sign up for any of our newsletters. I think we have more than 50 of them that are free. You can also sign up for those newsletters at that site. So I'm going to introduce Autumn Phillips, who is the editor-in-chief, and she is going to be leading the discussion today and the moderator. And I'll let Autumn take it away.
All right. Thanks for being here. So, business reporter Warren Wise just walked in. Sorry to call you out as soon as you're here. The conversation we're going to have today is really based on a story that he published in July about Meeting Street Road, the place that we're on right now. And how really in the last few years, this place has emerged as a frontier for growth and development. We have 3 leaders in that growth. So to your far left, or my far left, to your, let's see, stage left. To my left is Palmer Quimby. We're here in his space, founder and owner of Munkle Brewing. In the center, we have Lindsay Nevin, CEO of Flyaway Companies. And right next to me, we have Wesley Horne, founder and owner of The Block. And we'll begin by letting everyone talk a little bit more about their projects, so we're setting the stage. So when I think about, Meeting Street Road in this corridor we're talking about, it's North Morrison all the way really to Sproul. So I want to start, Lindsay, you told Warren that you really started looking at this area 15 years ago. And so what was it that you saw 15 years ago that maybe others weren't seeing?
Well, it was just clear that the path of growth was headed this direction out of the historic district, and everything kind of marching up Meeting Street, basically up to Line Street. We were starting to poke around in different areas and talking to the city a little bit about different ideas and things that we could do. And I mean, frankly, early on, this was fairly early on in my career working for myself, and it was still relatively affordable up here. So we had some different ideas as to what we felt like there was some demand for, and started looking around in the area that is kind of known as NOMO and the North Meeting Street area at that point. So the first building that we landed on was 1600 Meeting Street, which is just right up the road. It was built in 1926 by Standard Oil, and we've set it up to basically house small to medium-sized local creative businesses.
Palmer, you told Warren that you saw everything moving north. You said, I saw the writing on the wall. So what was it about right now that made you feel like this was the moment to open a brewery out here?
I would say that, Charleston was out of room. And so everything had to go one direction, and this is the only direction left to go. And as we were looking at different areas in Charleston, one of my business partners, Henry Ng, who owns Basil Thai Restaurant here in Charleston, really at the forefront of going into areas that maybe haven't really done anything yet, or maybe up-and-coming areas. And so we started looking for locations that we felt like maybe at first weren't going to be the best spot to open a brewery, but maybe in 6 to 10 years from when we opened would be a better location, being surrounded by people. So.
And Wesley, your project opens next April. You want to talk a little bit about what is the block and why here, why now?
Yeah, sure. Well, I moved here in 2011, and like Lindsay, I started looking in this area then, and it was pretty clear to me. My business, I was a shooting instructor for the Lakers and a player development coach in the NBA, and so I started with one client that Bobby Crimmins had as a towel boy, and I have about 1,600 kids now, second grade through high school, and so and they're from Charleston and all the surrounding areas, so I wanted a neutral site, and there was a lot of soil contamination, a lot of things that popped up after getting your hands dirty on it, and so it was a great challenge, and I just kept pursuing the area until we found something that was clean and clear. And so the new off-ramp coming from North Charleston was also a huge bonus for Meeting Street, and hopefully we'll get this road paved one of these days, because you need a truck or a four-wheel drive on it now or knock your suspension out. But I kept growing. I started with private training and leagues and clinics and all of that, and so I wanted to build something that was for the kids, to give them proper training, fundamental growth, mental conditioning, tutoring after school, massage therapy, physical therapy for the pro athletes during the off season, and just host some really cool events from high-level teams from Indiana and other areas. And try to keep everybody here, right here in the neck area. And so this place was very intriguing to me, and it's really quick to jump over to Mount Pleasant, downtown, Tanger Outlets, the beaches, you name it. So Charleston is a gem for all of that, no matter what business you're in. And so I know people, it being a tourist destination, that it won't be very hard to get teams here. So I wanted to try to stay relevant for everyone in Charleston and the surrounding areas.
I'm not quite sure who the best person to ask, maybe Lindsay. So this is what is it called? The North, or the Upper Peninsula Zoning District, right? So the city created a special zoning district for just this area. And how does that work? What does it allow? Why does it help growth to happen here?
Well, so after we got our project underway on Meeting Street, there started to become some additional attention up here and to the south of us with the Half Mile North project. And that was when the city started to gain some traction on looking at an incentive-based overlay. So the zoning doesn't change, but there is incentive for you to do a mix of uses, affordable housing. There's a number of different factors that come into play there. And from the city's perspective, as far as the growth north is concerned, they wanted to see an additional 30 to 40,000 residents within the city of Charleston proper, and clearly this was the only place for that to happen. So at that point, from my perspective, that was really when the momentum began to build and that the city was paying attention to it. there was incentive involved for other developers to come in and start taking a look around, that is really when the ball got rolling as far as it attracting some additional attention, not just from local developers, but now national developers.
So Wesley, you made that comment about the roads. As this grows, what do you think, and others can jump in as we talk, what do you think infrastructure-wise this place is going to need, or this part of the city is going to need?
Well, it's, for me, when kids get out of school, I rented Charleston Day School for 8-9 years, and if you've ever been there, it's got the smallest parking lot downtown. And I would have 400 kids coming in there on an weekend for basketball events, and we controlled it, getting people in and out. And then Archdale Street was always just congested during the week, and so the infrastructure is it's only going to get worse if we can't get some of the traffic up and down Meeting Street, King Street Extension, and off of 26. And so this neck area here provides that access, especially I live in Mount Pleasant, so coming off the bridge and being able to jump on it and avoid 26 is something that I try to do at all costs, and I try to set my events up so that my clients can do that as well and parents can do that. And I think one of the key components to after-school events that I'll have will be to provide shuttle services to help parents out with carpooling and getting kids to and fro from my facility. And then once they get there, to offer multiple opportunities for them for tutoring and basketball and strength and conditioning to keep them there for several hours, a good sanctuary for that.
So I think about, we have what's happening today, and then I don't know if you can see into the future what's going to happen 10, 15 years from now. So I don't know, Palmer, if you want to take a stab at it. We have, I know we have Magnolia, that's expected, where are we? The West, expected to add 10,000 residents. We have Laurel Island adding commercial on what used to be a landfill. What do you think the city is going to look like, Charleston, North Charleston, in 10 years? Do you think the locus of the city could actually move, or I don't know, what are you picturing?
Well, I feel like the city has always evolved, and if you look at, I was in the food and beverage industry for 20 plus years here in Charleston, and if you look at the trends in that, everyone back in the day used to be all the way down on East Bay Street, and then you saw it kind of moving up into the King Street location, Upper King Street, and then you saw it moving up into the boroughs and the neighborhoods, and the next step is what we like to call the neck, which is this area. So I think everything's coming this way. And as that happens, you will also see trends where people go back down to where they were used to be. So Charleston's always changing, evolving, and growing. And I think this area is, there's a lot of potential here. And going back to the infrastructure, I think that's going to be a very important part of this area. Charleston is very good at let's build, and then we'll deal with the other stuff later. And that's something I'd like to see change here. It's like, let's deal with the infrastructure. Let's get this place set up for success and then build around that.
Well, you made me think, so as I was mentally following you and into the neighborhoods and then up here, the difference between here is it's not really walkable. I mean, are there...
That's right on. So one of the things that we would like to see up here is better sidewalks, crosswalks. This corridor, as he was talking about, is a great pathway up and down to North Charleston. But I'll tell you right now, the big trucks that come through here at 60 miles an hour, it's scary. As a business owner here, I have a small little parking lot here, which is all the city would allow me to have. But we have parking. You guys, a lot of y'all, I'm sure, parked on the street today. This is something that Charleston is. Charleston has never been a great parking city. We have to have parking garages. We have to have parking spots. And I tell people right now, enjoy these parking spots, because eventually they're going to put meters in and they're going to start charging all of you guys for it.
Anyone can answer this question. So what's the culture of this area? Who's leading? It's North Charleston and it's South North Charleston. Who's really guiding this growth? Is it the business community? Is it the cities? I mean, who's having these conversations? We need more sidewalks. We need more crosswalks. What's the culture?
Well, I mean, I think it's a combination. And to your point, I mean, oftentimes you see a lot of the growth start with the food and beverage industry, and that those guys are typically willing to go out on a limb and put a stake in the ground. It becomes the new cool, hip place to town, and then others ultimately end up following. And so that, happened many years ago at this point. And you've seen what has occurred since then, and it moved to local developers, and now we've got the national developers. And as far as the infrastructure is concerned, I mean, ultimately the city is responsible for leading that effort. And there have been a number of plans put together both for North Morrison and Meeting Street Road for what they refer to as a road diet, in that we really have more right-of-way up here than is actually needed for the traffic volume and the projections that they've got. And so some of those would include a bike lane and more formalized on-street parking. The city has always been in favor of on-street parking, but this is a South Carolina DOT road. They are not in favor of it. So you've got those issues to contend with that you see all the time in jurisdictions really across the country, and is most certainly something that we're dealing with here. But I think the pedestrian piece, the bicycle piece, and then the mass transportation piece is most certainly something that is on people's radar. We just haven't gotten there yet.
And I'm just going to piggyback on Lindsay. I think that we should utilize these railroad tracks, and because it comes right behind my facility. And so if a couple dads in the gym wanted to come down and watch ball games here at Munkle and grab a beer or whatever, they could just come straight down. Ice cream, you could put whatever you wanted to on that. You could make it, I lived in Houston for a while with the Rockets, and it wasn't a people-friendly city as far as walking. It was dangerous. And so you talk about bikes and walking on this with those big trucks, it's not going to be good. I just think that we can utilize some of the things that are already in existence, and I think the railroad tracks are one of those.
Anything else?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree that the railroad track, utilizing space that hardly gets used right now. I see a train maybe twice a day. I'm pretty sure it's just the BMW track that runs trains in and out of the port. So as we can continue to move all of the commerce, I think, away from the areas that all the tourists are in and kind of move them further up the river, that these things will be open for things like that, and really trying to set it up for pedestrians and people to come down here and be a part of this area, and not only have access to this area, but in North Charleston, and then all the way down as far as it'll go. And I think the more that we can do that, the better off we'll all be.
And I want to say, too, with families, it's important. I have 2 kids, 6 and 4, and so when I get somewhere, I want to stay put. And I would like to have access to other areas. And so one of the key, decisions that we make when we're loading the kids up to go somewhere and sit down and eat, we're always considering, do they have parking? And if they do have parking, they're going to have enough. Is there anything next to it after we get through eating? And I see this evolving into that. These guys are doing some really special things and special events that I'm sure, are later at night, adult-friendly, and then you could, you have family-friendly daytime events too. And so to be able to stay put once you get into this area, that's a big deal. And it would mean a whole lot, I know, for me and a lot of other families.
Well, I think one other thing to add is that our neighbors are still very much in the industrial business as well. I mean, but behind our site in particular, you've got Kinder Morgan over there. They're a massive energy conglomerate. They've got fuel, aggregate, sand. I mean, it's basically moving raw materials around. Those guys aren't going anywhere. So we have to, learn to live with them and ultimately plan around that. It's the same with the new rail line that's going to go into the new rail yard up there. I mean, we're basically going to have an additional crossing with a lot more traffic up Meeting Street Road in the not too distant future. So it's a matter of really collaborating with those groups and making sure that we get consensus on how to move forward.
I was going to ask about that. When I think of this area, I think of tow yards and big and large industrial and auto detailing, and I was wondering what is going to happen to those businesses. Are they going to be, as maybe the costs go up here? Is that cost pressure going to put push them elsewhere, or you think it will become a mixed neighborhood?
I think it needs to become a mixed neighborhood. I think people that are already here need to support the people that are looking to come here and add things to the neighborhood. I think that there should be some incentives for people, not just big out-of-town companies, but people that are local and are looking to put some roots down in this area and be part of the growth. I think it's going to be an integral thing for everyone here. I have an open door policy for anybody that's up here. If I can help with anything, move anything forward, answer any questions, as someone that's opened up a business here, bought a piece of property, built a building, and been operating a business for 6 years, I'm happy to talk with anybody to help. Other than that, I don't really know what I can do. I can't, offer financial support. I have to take care of myself and my family and my friends and my partners. But we love this neighborhood, and as someone that's grown up here in Charleston, and came up and down this corridor as a kid in the 80s. It's nice to see kind of the growth here, and I'd like to see it continue, but done responsibly and done in a way that involves everybody.
Yeah, I think the responsibility piece has a lot to do with it, and that we have one of the greatest urban examples of cities within the United States just down the road from us, and it's an amazing city because of the way that the infrastructure is set up. It's an amazing city because of the diversity and because of the mix of uses, and so the ability to use that as an example as far as what the development should look like. We're seeing a lot of different type of development going on right now, a lot of kind of bigger box development that I know a lot of people aren't as happy with. I mean, we ultimately land on the density that the city is after with those larger buildings, but at the same time, it doesn't provide that same mix of uses. We definitely want bodies in this area, but the ability to think creatively about the offering that people have in this area, and ultimately what is available is important.
Lindsay, you made a comment about how it's food and beverage often that puts the stake down or takes the risk or sort of is the pioneer into a new area. Does food and beverage have a voice in? I know you said that it's ultimately the city that needs to be leading this and shaping this growth, but does food and beverage have a united voice, or?
We do have the Charleston Restaurant Association, which I think is if you're looking for a voice, there's a common collective for the food and beverage industry here in Charleston. That would be it. And, as much as I would like to say that they have a voice, I don't necessarily know if it's heard all the time. But I have a different view of it than I think most. But ideally, this town has always been a restaurant town, and I think it will continue to do so. We've got a lot of great workers and a lot of great people that are in the industry here, and they're definitely part of the lifeblood of this city. And, whether you like the tourism, whether you don't, if we didn't have those restaurants, if we didn't have those hotels, we would have none of that. So it is a part of it. And I think that with all of us working together, we can continue to grow the city, grow the restaurant scene, keep the tourists coming in while still keeping some of the charm and providing jobs and places for people to come and go and work and live.
I was just going to chime in on that. First of all, I love to eat, so I'm probably keeping all y'all in business. But a lot of my coaches are part-time guys, and so they're seasonal too. They coach high schools and middle schools and other. They have other jobs, and so the supplemental income that restaurants offer and the help that gives people. Charleston's an expensive place, and so people need that extra. A little boost of cash flow to help them along. So I think that's a huge component as well, because everyone that moves here, new or been here for a couple of years or just got out of college, that's always something that's on the table for them, is to work in the food and bev industry just to provide for themselves or their family.
Just to continue on that one, I feel like that this area is a prime place to start to offer affordable housing for people that are in that industry. You know, as someone that started here, when I moved back here in '99 to go to school and, you know, started working in restaurants, I could afford to live downtown. You know, I had a couple roommates, but the way prices are now, most people can't, even people that are not in the food and beverage industry, can't afford to live downtown in that area. It's a very select few that can. So I think this area is a great opportunity to, you know, if we want to have that great restaurant scene here and that great hotel scene and continue to bring in the places, we can't have people living 45 minutes to an hour away. They've got to be closer. And this is a prime area, I think, to offer affordable housing for people that are working here in the industry that helps this city thrive.
I just wanted to chime in on the, you know, we talked about the infrastructure, and in my facility, during the school year, the kids aren't going to come out until 3:30 or 4. So the one thing that I would like to do in the facility is to offer elderly or disabled physical therapy, or just a place for them to come with open space so they could get to, because I mean, travel is just, we plan events all the time around it, and you just can't mention it enough. And I know everybody sees the issues that are taking place, but I rent probably 13 gyms. We're in Park West, James Island, downtown, Mount Pleasant, all over. And if I have an event at North Charleston Athletic Center that recently been built, I need to leave 45 minutes from my house during certain times of the day, when if I leave at 10 o'clock in the morning, I can get there in 12 or 15 minutes. And other times it takes an hour in getting stuck on it. And I don't know if y'all are aware, but I saw somewhere recently that the on-ramp to the bridge and all the way up to the Tanger Outlet, I believe, exit was the worst interstate section in the state of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. So that really plays a big role, and 526 is very difficult as well. So, yeah. And the holy city, you know, not being able to build above the steeples. I love that. We don't block the sunshine too much around here, but the way it's growing, and everywhere, by the way, has its own vibe. This neck area will have its own vibe without trying. It's like Daniel Island, Park West, all the other areas that you go to, they have their own vibe, their own feel of food and bev and everything else. So you get the mix of everything in Charleston, which is a beautiful thing.
So, you know, my last question was going to be about affordable housing. You know, we have this Boom and Balance series that has been going for, I think, 4 years now. And just this past year, we started a new series called Priced Out, which is about affordable housing and about how we might be building a place where people can't afford to live, teachers and food and bev, and how do we deal with that. So if there's anything else you wanted to say about affordable housing and what that actually looks like in this area, that can be my last question, and then I'll open it up to the audience.
Well, they've already been priced out. It's already happened. It's not going to happen. We're living in it right now. So I think that anybody that's come to the table up here that's looking to start a new business, start a new, you know, build apartments, build condos. I really think the emphasis needs to be on providing housing for people that live here and work here. Ultimately, that's what we want. We want to become a neighborhood. That's the way I've always kind of treated this area. The neck, as we like to call it. It's, you know, I live right up the road about 10 minutes from here in West Ashley. And had I not bought my home with my wife 8 years ago, I couldn't afford to live there. It's gotten very expensive. I certainly couldn't live in this area. And so one of the things that I'd like to continue to see is the conversation being had that it's not something that we need to talk about. It's a necessity. It needs to happen.
All right, anybody have questions, unless you had something you want to say?
Well, I was just going to make one additional comment as far as the Charleston County property down at the bottom of Morrison Drive, and some of you guys have probably read about the debate going back and forth there as to whether or not the county will ultimately designate either all or a portion of that property for affordable housing, and that's ultimately what it's going to take. You've got such strong market forces in this area of town at this point that there are very few for-profit developers that want to come in and take on the affordability component. I mean, that is a component that is within the Upper Peninsula zoning district as far as one of their incentives that were concerned, that they allowed you to add additional density and additional height. If you put, I think it's either 10 or 15% of your units as affordable housing in those units, but we really need the city and the county to step in to help drive the conversation on that and ultimately help carve out areas for affordable housing to be designated.
All right, anybody have a question? Misty can bring the mic to you. Or Sean.
Thank you. Were you talking about, where specifically were you talking about that development for affordable housing?
It's right at the base of the off-ramp getting on to East Bay and Morrison.
Oh, yes. So you're talking about Cunnington Avenue, heading toward the Magnolia Cemetery?
Well,
Cunnington?
it's on Morrison Drive. If you get off the exit coming off of the bridge and take a right, it's just on the left.
Okay, gotcha. Because there is going to be some affordable housing built on Cunnington where the new Hope Center is going. That's a place where people experiencing homelessness can come, one-stop shop. That's going to break ground in October. But what I wanted to ask you about was the Low Country, the rapid bus transit. How will that impact this area? What do you see that looking like? And for security's sake, getting on and off the bus, what does that look like here in this region?
I can't personally speak to it as far as what it's going to look like. I think Charleston has a little bit of a transportation problem, an issue. And I know people that use it. I know it's something that's been around for a long time, but I feel like if you look at a lot of other cities, some that are smaller, some that are larger, I think there's ways that it could be done better. I don't have those answers as to what that is, but having safe locations for people to be dropped off and picked up, having shelters built where people can stay if they're waiting for a bus or waiting for transportation. I think the further you come up the neck, the more it becomes an afterthought. So one of the things that I'd like to see up here is more care and thought put into how that's going to work and how people are going to get around and get in and off, public transportation.
Yeah, I would say that it's a step in the right direction. It's definitely not going to solve the problem. I mean, there has been more of an effort to build and create covered bus stops within Meeting Street Road and also down Morrison Drive. So some of that has been pushed by the communities, nonprofits in particular, and some of that has been taken on by the city. But we've still got a long way to go as far as getting people in and out of the city.
And I'll chime into that too. I started the Walk-On Foundation to help. I grew up poor, so I couldn't afford to train with Dynamic, so I did that to help families and children to come in and train. And so the routes with the buses, they always don't meet up to our schedules and what we're trying to do at the facility. So to work with shuttle services to get kids to the facility and then get them back home safely, that's one of my main goals is to be able to reach out and do that so that we could have direct access and there wouldn't be any stop-start, but it would help with the infrastructure and all the issues that we're having with the clogged traffic. So that's my goal, and I have plenty of people interested to help in that way. So,
guys, in talking to other business owners downtown, where do their employees come from and where do they park? Because I've been here for 13 years and worked in industry for a while. And we would just walk or ride our bikes. And I mean, if you drove, you could just throw it in a meter and, for 2 hours at the start of your shift. So what have you guys, what have people been doing in light of the, there not being housing downtown for industry workers?
I can speak to, as someone that, been in the industry for a long time, parking has always been kind of a high commodity. And it's kind of a game that you play with the meter people that are running around, running out, putting change in, moving your car around, parking in a parking garage. The ultimate feat is if you finally get a position that actually offers parking, which back in the day was very much a luxury. I was fortunate enough to work for Maverick Southern Kitchens back in the day, and I remember when I got a promotion into management, that was the thing I was most excited about, was my parking space. You know, I still had to walk 5 blocks to my parking lot at night, but it was something that I really kind of treasured. But as far as us up here, I don't think the parking issue is here yet, but I think as we can continue to develop, it will be an issue. We're fortunate that we've got parking here on the other side of the building. We've got parking out here on the street that we're allowed to use, I guess, for the time being. But you know, it's challenging, and I don't think that's ever going to change. And the more that they take spaces away from us to put in taxi cab places or a valet thing, one of the most frustrating things in the world is I pull up to a space downtown Charleston and I can't park there because some guy wants to come grab my car and park it right there. That makes no sense. So I think really utilizing the areas and space that we have. I also think that you may or may not know this, but a lot of our parking garages are very old and outdated. A lot of them are having a lot of issues, and so I think that continuing to invest in the infrastructure, which parking is a big part of that, especially if you go back downtown, most of those parking garages are going to need to be replaced in the next 10 to 20 years. So if we don't start looking at it now, we're going to have some big issues as we go down the road. So I'd like to see that continue to happen up here, is really work on creating spaces that can not only hold people and have people come and work, but also allows them to be able to park their car near where they're going to be working at and not have to worry about parking down at the Battery and riding their bike 5 miles to where they're working. So,
Not only that, the the businesses with parking, that's getting worse. You know, business owners are being taxed to the gills as well. So even on Shem Creek, you could go and you could park and hang out and go eat and just chill for a while. Now it's taxed to park, and it's $20 just to go before you even go in and have a meal. So, but they're doing that because of, you know, what they're having to pay. And I mean, of course, it is what it is, but there's a strain all the way around, and that obviously makes it more difficult to even consider to come to downtown Charleston or to Mount Pleasant. It's a convenient way. It's a brilliant way to make money, honestly, if you're just looking at it from a revenue standpoint. But you know, anywhere you go, you're looking, you got a meter, and then it's text to park. So all of that's going away as well.
Well, I would say that specific to this area, it is not currently a problem. And where you have seen a lot of the density go up, you know, there are parking garages being built. So the underlying zoning ultimately dictates what type of parking that you have to have for any given site for any particular use that you've got. And fortunately, we've got enough area up here to be able to plan for those challenges. And you know, a lot of this really just boils down to community involvement at the end of the day. You talked about, you know, having a voice, whether it's the restaurant group or the business owners or the developers or just the citizens in general. There really isn't a clear coalition up here at this time. There was a pretty decent effort early on when the UP ordinance was first being put in place. But, you know, the zoning ultimately dictates what goes on in any area of the city. And, you know, when people are challenging that zoning or pushing to do something that doesn't fall within that underlying zoning classification, is where the general public has an opportunity to step in and actually voice their opinion. So you see a lot of this on the Lower Peninsula with Historic Charleston Foundation and the Preservation Society and many of the other community groups, and frankly, we just don't really have a lot of that up here at this point. There are some groups and some nonprofits that are advocating, but you know, the ability to pull together the people that are living here is ultimately what's going to move that needle.
Well, my name is Okiba Jabalo, and thank you all for doing what you do. Born in Charleston, raised in North Charleston, spent 30 years in Atlanta, New York, D.C., actually building infrastructures. So when I use the word infrastructure, I'm talking about communities, nonprofits, you name it, I've done it. Came back to Charleston 2 years ago to build North Charleston into what it needs to be. So I grew up in this area. Grew up on Ashley Phosphate Road, Rivers Avenue, have a gallery on Rivers Avenue. Just giving you some context before I say what I say. So a big part of the issue is a lack of diversity here in Charleston in regards to the decision makings. So when we look at that part of it, we say affordable housing. That sounds like a good idea, but the real answer is making more money. So we invest in the population who needs affordable housing. Now you have a different machine because developers don't want to touch that part because there's not enough profit, there are too many hang-ups. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at solving the answer here in Charleston and North Charleston, we look at STEAM, you know what I'm saying? And then we add agriculture. And then we add so many different parts and pieces to it to make this, because there isn't any more room down here. I live right across the street, but I'm going back to Park Circle, North Charleston, like I said. So when we look at that, we also look at an arts district. Charleston has everything that it needs to compete on a major level, which are Miami, your Atlanta, your New York, your DC. We have everything to compete and win, but we don't have leadership in place. Because as everybody knows, if you're not from Charleston, we're not really gonna listen to you in certain rooms. So we'll cut our nose off to spite our face. You know what I'm saying? But when we look at the answers is gonna be to help that population make more money through education, trades, that component. And then you won't have the same volume that you'll need for housing. You know what I'm saying? So when we start putting these conversations together, we have to diversify who's sitting at the panel. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a part of it. Well, I'm from here. Hundreds of years of blood in the soil. So when I speak on behalf of all of my folks. You know what I'm saying? But being able to put that part together. You know, we look at an arts district. That's what we're building in North Charleston. That's coming next. You know what I mean? So when we look at those parts and pieces, yeah, the restaurants are good. The breweries are good. But we have to have culture. And the culture has to be diverse. It has to be inclusive, real inclusive, and intentional. And that's a big part of Charleston's problem is the cultural piece is accidental. Success is accidental. We got to be intentional about everybody winning and stop making everything such an accident. And then you have a different machine.
I'll definitely chime into that. You know, I grew up in a single wide trailer on a dirt road in Alabama, so nearest grocery store was 45 minutes from me. So my mom raised us by herself, and my granddad was my role model. But you know, there was a lot of challenges that we faced, and I didn't have resources to any type of private training or things that I offer now, and what I'm trying to do to change the landscape for the kids. And you know, I'm a Jesus man first, so the other stuff goes out the window when you talk about politics. But just helping the families and the kids to get proper, for example, job readiness training. A lot of times these kids don't learn what they need to in college. They're not prepared to perform when they get out of college or even when they get out of high school. A lot of kids like myself come out of high school without education as a priority. And so you understand the challenges that kids face when college is on a 6'8" kid. They don't look at him because of his grades. They don't look at him because he hasn't put the time in to prepare to go to college to the next level. And so that was the whole purpose of creating the Walk On Foundation, so that I could help kids to walk on and be part of Dynamic, the job readiness training, to get them involved in every aspect of sports, because there's a great living in PR, HR, you name it, physical therapy, you name it. So there's a lot that I want to offer and teach these kids. And I purchased in the Opportunity Zone for what Senator Scott did here for us, and to hopefully get some help in building it out and doing it the right way and providing the supplemental jobs, the part-time jobs, and the full-time jobs. And so I'm here to tell you, I'm doing my very best to lead a charge in that area, and it's very difficult. You know, there are many hurdles to get over, and everywhere you turn is roadblock after roadblock. And I've met with pastors, I've met with youth leaders, I've met with everybody. And so everybody's intention, I think, that I met with it is good. I don't think that anyone, I know that it's obvious for what you were talking about and what you see, and I just think that people are working towards a solution. They just don't necessarily know which way to go and where to find the answers. And so I'm still, you know, on that path myself. But the bottom line, you keep knocking, and hopefully it'll eventually open. and you make enough noise, and it'll eventually, get someone's attention. And so that's really where I'm at right now. And so any of you in this room, if you have any questions or concerns or ways that I could help or get involved with kids in your area, schools in your area, churches in your area, whatever it is, please let me know, because I would love to help that way. And I mentioned earlier, too, about I don't want to leave out the elderly or anybody that might be retired in the area, that's been here their whole lives, that need access to facilities to come in and get their exercise and PT and massage therapy and some of those things, too, because that's a crucial part, being an athlete and seeing what these athletes go through and in their latter years. That's something that I want to offer for not only them, but also locals as well.
Well, I would agree that it also boils down to leadership, and that there is an opportunity in this particular area, and it's not only at the local level, but also at the state level, and then also at the community level. So there is most certainly an opportunity in this whole zone from Line Street up to the North Charleston line for us to see a lot of diversity come out of this area. But as we have seen, we need additional leadership both at the city and state level to help guide some of that change.
Okay, any more questions?
Based on your
Omar?
experience, or rather lessons learned, what would you advise to somebody who's thinking of starting a business in this area?
One second. Starting a business now, it's tough. The interest rates are, sky high. I look back in 2012 at 2 acres, and I'm going through trying to build on 2 acres. Then it was 1.2 turnkey. Now it's around 6.2. If that gives you any idea. And so, it's such a challenge as a business owner. And I know a lot of people look to business owners to make the changes. And in order to be impactful, as I mentioned earlier, if you get some supplemental income and you keep people in this area and you provide, shuttles and different things for people to come into the area for the families and kids, it makes a difference. But even starting a business right now in this area, I'm planning 3 years just to, kind of figure out how the infrastructure affects things, how 26 affects things during certain times of the day, and you need a window, just forgiveness over time, just to kind of iron some things out. So it's a very challenging time right now. I would just say that much, and things really don't move very fast at all. I think all these guys can agree with me on that as far as getting boxes checked with the city. Soils testing, there's just a lot of question marks, and so I don't want to discourage you at all, but it's challenging, so just don't let anybody tell you no.
Just to add on to that, I would certainly say that the city of Charleston does not make it easy to open up a new business anywhere in Charleston, and I think one of the reasons that we might see a lack of diversity in some of the businesses up this way is because it is so challenging. And not to say that's the only factor, but I do think that plays a part of it. Coming up here, buying this property, building this building, took over 3 years. It should not take that long to do that as a business owner. And as he's saying, I did this starting 9 years ago. I couldn't afford to do this right now. There's no way if I was looking to start this business right now that I could have opened this business with my partners. We would be priced out of it. We got lucky to get in when we did, and we're making the best of it. But it's very challenging, and I'd love to see the city step up and create some more opportunities for more people just to make it easier. And it comes down to communication from the people in the offices, from checking the soil, as he was talking about, to building inspectors and everything in between. Every time you turn around, it's another challenge that you run into. And the only way to speed that up and move it forward is more money. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way this city kind of runs. And I've seen it run that way for a long time.
You mind if I ask about, both of you have brought up soil, and this being an industrial area for so long, does that add a pretty hefty layer of cost to.
Absolutely. Depending on where you're at, we had to do soil samples, x-rays on the property, which is, of course you want to make sure there's nothing buried here, make sure there's nothing detrimental. We got lucky, but I do know other people that have found stuff on their property. When the apartments down here on the corner of Morrison, when they were breaking ground, I'm pretty sure they found an unexploded ordnance over there. So there's stuff up here with the Navy base being right down here. There's plenty of stuff buried in the ground here. And when we took off a foot of topsoil, there was a ton of horseshoes, trash. I think this area has kind of been the dumping ground for the city of Charleston for 250 plus years.
And this is my 5th go round. So I've tried to build a facility 5 times. This is my 5th go round to even get the still erected. And each time I went through the process, every time they dig a hole, there's a fee. If they find a buried car, I worked with Mayor Summey and the North Charleston City Council years ago. I presented I gave a proposal of where I would like to build in their military magnet, and there was, there's just a lot of things that have been buried for years and years, and even if you go down 20 feet and it's moving a foot a year, eventually when it gets into your neighbor's area, that's your responsibility. And so the cleanup is, it can be any number you want to toss at it. So there's a lot of challenges with that as well. So starting a new business and building and the process to get to that point, it's extremely difficult, no matter how you look at it.
Well, and I would say in this particular area of town, especially the North Meeting Street area, I would assume that there is contamination in just about every single parcel up here of some kind. And it varies depending on where you are. Our site in particular had a fairly high amount of contamination. There used to be an old canning facility on it that Standard Oil owned. It was a Superfund site, so Exxon, who now owns Standard Oil, is still involved in that. So it is a very time-consuming and arduous process to hold those guys accountable. We did it, but it took us 2 years, and those guys came in and actually paid to clean it up. So there are some other options there, but it's a complicated process and something that, ultimately, if you're developing property up here, you've got to have somebody that can help kind of shepherd you through that process, because it's challenging at best.
I'm Rob Leahy, and I have Fine Rugs next here, right next door. And other than Glass Act, which was here before us, we were the first customer-facing business up here. So I'd like to welcome you all. That's what I did that for, thank you. But in answer to a lot of the questions, just be patient. The city is trying to move. There is a park and ride, which is about to happen again, which will help the restaurant, food, and beverage people, because right now they're parking under the underpass. They used to park on Morrison Drive, and then they built all the apartments and everything there. So now they park from where 26 turns on to Septima Clark, all the way up under there. So eventually they're going to be parking up this way too. They have no choice. But as soon as they move the meters back to 10 p.m., they're going to start the park and ride again. So there'll be a better opportunity for the food and beverage people. But thank you all for coming up here. It's really great to see you all.
Thank you. My name's Tom. My question is around human capital, basically, workforce, and it's kind of a two-part question. Because correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the workforce, especially food and bev, took a big hit during COVID. As businesses continue to grow this way, do you see? Well, has it recovered? A lot of you, as a workforce, come back and you're still having employment issues. And do you, as businesses continue to grow this way, will there be a workforce living in, that are working for wages that enable them to live in affordable housing, that will be able to support the businesses that are continuing to grow?
just speaking from my standpoint, you know, as I said it before, the supplemental income that I provide, and I have full-time guys, I have part-time guys to try to assist, and I've always thought of it, you know, putting myself in their shoes and what I could do, because everybody, it's easy to point out problems. It's very challenging to provide solutions, and I've always been solution-minded, and I've always tried to think of, you know, others and put myself in their shoes and see what I could do to assist them, and just, so I started the nonprofit to help in that area. I was getting kind of screwed over in the uniform business and what I was paying to help or get uniforms and garments for my children, so I created an apparel business, retail license, and I started a real estate business to try to help myself to go through and work with people like Lindsay. I just met him today, but someone that could educate me and shepherd me through that process and to learn more about that. And just tried to create many different venues, not only that offered something for Charleston for people to earn money and the supplemental income to afford this area, but something also for their children and to prepare them for those life challenges. But no matter how you look at it, it's extremely difficult for us as business owners to even pay a certain rate. I do my very best to incentivize my coaches by their character and leadership on the court and all the intangibles that I need them to bring onto the floor, that the kids get so much from it every hour. And so the more that they do with those things, the better for me and the kids and the entire area, how it impacts the area. But it brings them back if I pay them more for bringing that to the table. And so it helps me to keep them in the gym. I will say that COVID, it affected people in a lot of different ways, but there's been a struggle for a lot of folks in getting back to the workforce and really getting back on the grind and getting their toes in the mud. And so I know people have their own story and they faced a lot of different challenges, but I have seen it affect a lot of people that way, especially those that have struggled and even lost businesses.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up. I thought this was a really interesting conversation. What was fascinating to me, a couple things. One, that it started from a story by Warren about, you know, just noticing the growth up here, and that growth isn't just about, you know, putting up buildings. It's about 1,000 things. I mean, we talked about every aspect of life in the last 40 minutes. This was recorded. Anybody that bought a ticket signed up, registered, we'll get an email with a link so you can share this out or post it. Thank you for hosting us, and thanks to our panelists. This was a really cool event.